He said it the way you say something final. He said if I could not watch those children every single day, then I was just taking up space. I did not say anything back. I just put the phone down on the kitchen counter and stood there. The coffee I had poured was still hot. I did not drink it. I did not know then how long the silence after that call would last. I did not know what it would cost me, or what it would quietly give back. My son Marcus had been bringing the grandchildren over every weekday morning for nearly 3 years by the time my body started refusing to cooperate. The youngest, Deshaun, had been 4 days old the first time I held him in this kitchen. I remember standing at the counter because my back was already unsteady that morning, and thinking I would do anything for this child. For all of them. That thought felt simple and true. True things can still carry a price you did not read before you signed. The pain had been building for a while before I said anything. Low on the left side, deep in the joint. Some mornings I would ease myself out of bed and stand still for a moment before I trusted my own legs. I told myself it was age. I told myself it would pass. I kept carrying Deshaun up the back steps every morning because he was 3 years old, and he wanted to be carried. And I did not want to be the grandmother who said no to a 3-year-old at 7 in the morning. Deshaun weighed 38 pounds at his last checkup. I know because I was the one who took him. My doctor in Memphis used the word degenerative the way doctors use words they want you to absorb without argument. She said it, and then she watched me. Then she used a second word. Irreversible. She said that one quieter, like she was setting something down gently rather than handing it to me. I drove home slowly after that appointment. I sat in the driveway for a few minutes before I went inside. The heat was already thick outside even though it was only morning. He said it the way you say something final. He said if I could not watch those children every single day, then I was just taking up space. I did not say anything back. I just put the phone down on the kitchen counter and stood there. The coffee I had poured was still hot. I did not drink it. I did not know then how long the silence after that call would last. I did not know what it would cost me, or what it would quietly give back. My son Marcus had been bringing the grandchildren over every weekday morning for nearly 3 years by the time my body started refusing to cooperate. The youngest, Deshaun, had been 4 days old the first time I held him in this kitchen. I remember standing at the counter because my back was already unsteady that morning, and thinking I would do anything for this child. For all of them. That thought felt simple and true. True things can still carry a price you did not read before you signed. The pain had been building for a while before I said anything. Low on the left side, deep in the joint. Some mornings I would ease myself out of bed and stand still for a moment before I trusted my own legs. I told myself it was age. I told myself it would pass. I kept carrying Deshaun up the back steps every morning because he was 3 years old, and he wanted to be carried, and I did not want to be the grandmother who said no to a 3-year-old at 7 in the morning. Deshaun weighed 38 pounds at his last checkup. I know because I was the one who took him. My doctor in Memphis used the word degenerative the way doctors use words they want you to absorb without argument. She said it, and then she watched me. Then she used a second word. Irreversible. She said that one quieter, like she was setting something down gently rather than handing it to me. I drove home slowly after that appointment. I sat in the driveway for a few minutes before I went inside. The heat was already thick outside even though it was only morning. I kept going for 4 more months after that appointment. I want you to understand that. For months of lifting that child, of bending to tie shoes, of sitting on the floor with a bad back, because that is where the children wanted to play. I kept going because stopping felt like a kind of abandonment, and I was not ready to be that. But there is a point where the body stops negotiating and simply presents the bill. I called Marcus on a Tuesday evening. I had just come from a follow-up and the doctor had confirmed what I already knew. I sat in the driveway again. Then I went in and picked up the phone before I could find a reason not to. I told him what the doctor said. I told him I was not going anywhere. I told him I still wanted to be there for those children every single week. But I could not do 5 days anymore. I needed 2 days during the week to rest. Just 2. I said maybe there was a part-time program for Deshaun, or a neighbor who could help. I told him I would help find something. I told him we could work it out together. He went quiet. Not the kind of quiet that means someone is listening. The kind that means someone is measuring how much they want to say. Then he said it. He said if I could not watch the children every day, then I was just taking up space. I heard the words clearly. I understood them. And then something in me went very still. The way things go still right before they break or right before they decide not to. I think I said I hear you. I am not sure. I put the phone on the counter. The kitchen was quiet. The coffee I had poured earlier had gone cold without me noticing. I looked at the dent in the cushion of the chair by the window. That worn-down spot from years of sitting in the same position every morning before the children arrived. And I thought about who I had been in that chair before I became mostly useful. That thought surprised me. I had not known I was carrying it until it was already out. I did not sleep much that night. I lay in the dark and turned the words over the way you turn something sharp in your hand. Not to cut yourself, just to understand the shape of it. Taking up space. I kept trying to give him the benefit of something. Stress. Fear. Words said in the heat of a moment. I have tried to be fair to him in the telling of this because fairness is something I believe in even when it is difficult. But the words had landed. And they did not lift. Tamara called the next morning. I was still in my robe, sitting at the kitchen table with tea I was not drinking, watching the driveway out of habit. Her voice had that careful quality voices get when someone has coached you on what to say, but not quite how to say it. She said Marcus was under a lot of pressure. She said the childcare situation was complicated financially. She said they were really counting on me. She did not mention what Marcus had said. She spoke around it the whole conversation, like a piece of furniture in the middle of the room that we had both agreed not to acknowledge. I said I understood the pressure. I said I was not walking away. I said I was asking for 2 days. 2 days in a 5-day week. She said she would talk to him. I waited. A week passed. The phone stayed quiet. Another week. I would think about calling and then I would think about what I would say and I would not be sure I had the words yet, so I would wait another day. I checked the driveway some mornings without meaning to. 7:15 would come and go. The street stayed empty. The third Monday was when I understood he was not going to call. The children did not come that day or the next or the day after that. No explanation. No arrangement made. Just a driveway that stayed empty and a kitchen that had nothing in it but me and the sound of the clock over the stove. I want to tell you something I have not said to anyone until now. The first morning the driveway stayed empty, I felt relief. Just a moment of it, small and quiet, like a muscle that had been held tight for a very long time finally being allowed to let go. And then the shame came right after it. And under the shame was grief. The kind that does not announce itself but just settles into the room and stays. I stood at that window for a long time not knowing which feeling I was actually inside. I think the relief was not about the children. I want to be clear about that. It was about being allowed, for one morning, to be a person with a body that had limits. Nobody needed me to override that in order to function. That had not been true for a long time. Maybe longer than 3 years. But grief does not wait for you to finish being relieved. They live in the same breath sometimes. I know that now. The weeks that followed were quieter than I had expected. My back improved some with the rest. The sharpness softened into something duller and more manageable. I started sleeping through the night again for the first time in almost a year. I sat in the kitchen chair without calculating how many minutes I had before I needed to shift positions. And I thought about Marcus. I thought about him constantly. Not with anger the way you might expect. More like trying to read a letter in the dark, turning it this way, and that hoping the light would catch it differently. I went back through the years looking for the place where I had made a mistake. Whether I had given him so much for so long that he had stopped being able to see the giving. Whether I had been so available that available stopped looking like love, and started looking like air. Something that simply existed. Something you did not have to thank. I do not know the full answer to that. Parents usually cannot see their own blind spots from inside them. But I know I have a part to carry. I have tried to carry it honestly. My daughter Renee called from St. Louis about 6 weeks into the silence. Word had moved through the family the way it always does. Through cousins and quiet phone calls and the particular silence of people who know, but are waiting to be told directly. Renee did not start with hello. She said what happened. I told her everything, including the relief I had felt that first morning. She was quiet for a moment, and then she said, "Mama, that relief means you were running empty." She said it plain and steady. The way you say something that should have been obvious to everyone a long time ago. She drove down from St. Louis that weekend without asking if she should. She just came. We sat in the kitchen and she made us tea, and we talked about things we had gone years without quite getting around to. About how the women in our family who gave the most were always treated as though the giving required nothing. No body. No cost. No rest. She said she had watched me give her whole childhood, and had always assumed I was just made that way. She said she was sorry for assuming that. That apology settled into me quietly. I did not expect how much it would matter. Marcus came 11 weeks after the silence began. He knocked on the door without calling first. I heard the knock and I stood in the kitchen for a moment before I walked to it. I did not know what I was going to find on the other side, or what I was going to say. He was standing on the porch with Deshawn on his hip. The two girls were somewhere behind him in the yard. Deshawn saw me and reached out with both arms the way small children reach for the people they trust. I took him. My back registered the weight immediately, that familiar pull on the left side. I held him anyway. Marcus did not look at me directly at first. He looked just past my shoulder, at the inside of the house, the way people look when they are trying to decide how to begin. He said he had been thinking. He said things had been hard. He said Tamara had found a part-time program for Deshawn 2 days a week. He did not say he was sorry. Ibaita mumen. I had expected the apology. I had been waiting for it longer than those 11 weeks if I am being honest. I waited for it the way you wait for something you are not sure is coming, but you keep a space open for it anyway. It did not come. He kept his eyes just past my shoulder. The girls came up the porch steps and wrapped themselves around my legs, both of them at once, the way they used to do. One of them asked if I had any of the oatmeal cookies from Fridays. I had not made those cookies in almost 3 months. I told her we could make some right now if she wanted. She said yes before I had finished the sentence. I stepped back from the doorway. Marcus came inside. He stood in the space between the kitchen and the living room with his hands at his sides, not knowing where to put himself. And I watched him for a moment, this man I had raised. This man who had said what he said and not yet found a way to unsay it. And I thought about how much you can love someone and still not have the words for what they have cost you. I got the mixing bowl down from the high cabinet. The girls pulled chairs up to the counter. Deshawn sat on the edge of the counter next to the bowl, and moved the spoon in circles, because he always wanted to be part of the stirring. Marcus leaned in the doorway and did not say much. I did not look at him for too long at a time. Some things do not get resolved the way you hoped they would. Some things just slowly become something else. Something less clean, but still real. Still present in the room. That was 2 years ago. Marcus and I have found a way to be around each other that mostly holds. The children come 3 days a week. My back manages 3 days without too much trouble most weeks. I am still waiting for certain words I may never receive. I have made a partial peace with that. The kind of peace that is not quite finished, but is the best you can do for now. What I have not made peace with is the understanding that those words came from somewhere real. Taking up space. They did not arrive out of nowhere. They came from years of me being available and that availability being reclassified, quietly and without discussion, as obligation. They came from me never once saying, "Here is what this costs me." From my son learning somewhere along the way that my limits were a position I was taking rather than a fact about my body. I did not do everything wrong. I want to say that plainly. I love those children. Every morning I watch them, and I would not give back a single one. But somewhere inside all that loving I forgot to remain visible as the one doing it. I became something like the kitchen itself. Present. Necessary. Easy to forget is not just a room, but a place where someone lives. That is the part one am still working on. I suspect I will be working on it for some time. The chair by the window still has that dent. Some mornings I sit in it before anyone comes and I drink my coffee and I do not fill the quiet with anything. I let it be mine for a little while. Deshaun is 5 now. He does not need to be carried up the back steps anymore. He runs up ahead of everyone, and waits at the top with his arms wide open like he is greeting the whole morning. Some days I stand at the bottom of those steps and watch him, and I feel something that lives right in the middle of happiness and ache. Not one, not the other. Both at once. I used to think that space between feelings was something to move through on the way to somewhere cleaner. I do not think that anymore. Most of my life has happened in that in-between place. Between what was said and what was meant. Between what I gave and what it cost me. Between the words that landed and the ones that still have not. Come. That space is not empty. I have learned that much. It is full of everything that did not get finished. And some mornings, with the coffee warm and the house still quiet and the dent in the cushion holding the shape of all those years, that feels like enough to sit with. Even now. Even after all of it. It feels like enough. My name is Loretta. I am 64 years old. I held this story inside for a long time before I knew how to say it. If any part of it sounds familiar to you, I hope you will leave a word below. I read every one. Voices of Emily.